One important thing to note is that the abolition movement actually split during this time period over the issue of whether or not to allow women to speak at abolitionist conventions. The people like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott were denied the right to speak publicly at convention about the issue of abolition. And Mott and Stanton decided to have their own convention for women's rights. They held it at the Seneca Falls, New York. It's called the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, and they called for women's rights. This is largely because of the idea that they were fighting for equality for African Americans and denied that right because they themselves were not equal. So women decided to fight for their own rights, and later they would get back to the abolition movement. In her famous Declaration of the Rights of Sentiment, which used the Declaration of Independence as a model and added women to it, Stanton argued that the women were second-class citizens because they had limited access to education. They didn't have the right to own their own property. They couldn't control the property that they did own. They had no right to a divorce. Essentially, there are a number of issues that are important to women at the time. Later in the 1800s, after the Civil War, the issue is going to become about suffrage, or the ability for women to vote. And that won't occur until the 1920s. But the suffrage movement gained steam all the way through the late 1800s.